Hello guys and welcome back to episode 2. So last episode we created one simple list and one card, as you can see here. That's where we left off. And today in this part we will create our first reducer. With this reducer I want to bring in some static data so we can render a few cards in this list. And last but not least, we will also make some little changes I forgot in the last episode, like link tags or the Roboto font for the Roboto font and the icons link in this index.html. Okay, so let's create our reducer right away. And I also changed the font family to, I can show it real quick, monospace, and I also changed the font size to 18 up from I think 13 it was before, so you can see the content a bit more clear, and I also zoomed in on the browser. Okay, so I will call this reducer lists reducer, and we create it right away. Lists reducer. It does receive the state and the action. We switch on the action.type, and by default we just return the state. Let's export it. Lists user. Okay. And now we also need a default state or an initial state. That will be an array of lists, and each list has an array of cards. So right now just create one list. The list has a title. We can call it last episode. We can create this here, so we can have two cards. Then it should also have an ID. For now I will just statically type in 0, but this will come from the backend later and also give us an generated ID. And more important, the cards, which should also be an array. And each card should have an ID, again statically for now. A text, let's copy it from here. And create a second card with the text you also can copy from here. Okay, that should be enough for now. And now we assign it to here. So this says take the state, but if you don't receive state, then fall back to our initial state and return it. Now we have to use it here, so we import it. Import the lists reducer from here, and now we can say we call it lists, and lists should be the lists reducer. Okay, fine. So now we have our reducer, and which component should be connected? I think the most sense would make the app, because in the future we will also have many lists, not just one list, many cards. So we can render many lists here. So let's connect it with the connect helper from Redux. We need a function called mapState2props. You can call this whatever you like, but this is convention. and we return an object that will receive this component as props. So we call this lists, and it comes from state.lists. And this state.lists really comes from this here. So if you were to rename this my lists, you would also have to rename this to my lists. Okay? But we will stick with lists. Okay, and now we have to connect it. Pass in this created function and the app itself. And now it's connected. So we will receive the list itself through this.props. And now we can create many lists. Right now we have just one in our default state. So let's map over it. We have a list on every map. And then we render a Trello list. It should receive the title, which comes from list.title, and also the cards, which comes from list.cards. Okay. Now, lists of undefined. Let's see, what have I done wrong? Oh yeah, we also have to connect our root reducer here. So we bring in our root reducer from /reducers. So we import this here, this export, because in the first episode we just created an empty reducer here so the app won't break, but now we can get rid of it and actually pass in our real root reducer. And combine reducers. I made a little typo here, sorry guys. Reducers. Another one. Reducers. Mine is not defined. Oh yeah, well, because we also spelled it wrong here. Okay. Now you can see not much, but the title has been updated last episode, because our title from our one list is last episode. Now we also should render the correct cards. So the list receives these cards. Now we don't render one card. We map over the cards. We get one card on each map. And we render a Trello card with the text property. Card.text. Okay. And now we have two cards, but the wrong word, because we have to pass it in here. Text. We receive the text. Now we don't want to type render this statically, but the passed in text. And voila. And while we are here, I don't like this style because I forgot something. I also have to bring in text content that comes from Material UI. Let's see on the component demo for the card. Card content it's called, sorry. card content. That will fix the ugly style. Yeah, much better now. It now has room to breathe, the text inside this card. And we also will, for now, make a little style that it has a bit of margin. So every card should have a little bit of margin bottom. Let's call it card container to be clear. Margin bottom of 8 pixel. Let's pass it in here. Styles.card container. Let's look. Yeah, that looks perfect. I like it. Okay, and now also I forgot to pass in the getting started installation section, the Roboto font. So let's grab it from here. And this goes into the index HTML. This takes care of the Roboto font and also the font icons, because we will add it in later. Okay, that takes care of this. Okay, so what we also can do now is render another list. So we can take care of this right now. I will have to create another list here in our initial state, so we have a second one. Let's call this episode. We make 3 cards. Let's grab it from here again. It's the first one. Second one goes right here. And we also create a third one. E2 text. Okay, great. Yes, now it automatically takes care of this, but we want to render it column-wise, so we have to style our container bit with flexbox so that renders it besides it, not below. We can do this here. So let's create a little div. And we call this, let's make the style first. Call it lists container. Should be flex. And the flex direction should be column. Let's see. Okay, I also have to pass it in. Lists container. Let's see. Okay, that does not too much. Is it row? Yeah, it's row, sorry, row. Column is the default and row is on the horizontal axis. So let's add in a little bit of padding. I think it's about 8. Sorry, I meant margin. Margin right, 8. Oh, sorry, and we also have to add this to the list itself. Margin right, 8. Okay, great. That looks good. Okay, now what I also like to do is change the background here, so it's more like this background. Let's look through the dev tools. Maybe we can find the background color. Yes, it should be this here. Let's change it here. Okay, it's more light gray. This looks good. Let's close this. Okay, that's nice. What we did on this episode, we created our first reducer. So we have a little bit more flexibility on what we want to render. And from now on it's easy. We can now just add in another list as we like this. And we get this for free. It's just working. And later on we will of course receive this from the backend. And when we create a list, we just have to push a new list into this array. But we will tackle this in a later episode. We also styled the components a bit, so this has a bit more room to breathe. Also added a bit of margin here. Okay, in the next episode we will tackle these bad boys right here, these actions, this call to actions, because what I was thinking is we can make a reusable component, because this button right here and this right here, they are very similar. They just have a little bit of different style and also another placeholder text, because here it says enter list title and another button text. So we can make a reusable component and pass in some props to decide whether it should render another card button or another list button. So this is a really great use of a reusable component. Okay guys, I'm looking forward to it, and thank you guys for watching. See you at the next episode.